Welcome to Power of Attorney podcast. I am your host, LeTonya Moore. And so today we are going to be discussing that you really might want to stop using that celebrity photo in your ads before you get sued, right? I've had consultation after consultation with people that want to use celebrities in their ads for some type of event, conference, so on and so forth. Now, mind you, the celebrity is not going to be there. They're not a paid advertiser or endorser or ambassador. And we're talking about that type of situation. So just understand the context of our podcast for today. But what we're really talking about is something called the right of publicity. It is a protectable intellectual property right. And so oftentimes people may not even know anything about it, but you have some inkling like, maybe I should not use their photo, or maybe I can get away with it, right? Because oftentimes people do it because they figure what? A celebrity's not paying attention to their little small podcast or their little small event. And so they could get away with utilizing that person's picture so that they can promote whatever it is that they're trying to promote, which of course produces a financial gain for them. But the right to publicity, right? The right to publicity is pretty much where it protects an individual against somebody else, some third party using your name, your image, your likeness for any type of commercial gain. That may not necessarily mean dollars. It may not necessarily mean direct dollars in the sense that it may not necessarily mean that it's ticket sales, but it could definitely mean market share, which does what? Increases your chances of making money off of the fact that you use that image. So you have to think about that. Now, lots of people have always, you sent in the questions, you asked, can I use a dead celebrity's photo? Right? Now, here's the thing. The answer actually is maybe, right? Because one of the things about the right of publicity is something called a common law right, which means that it came about because so many different things were happening. And so there's a lot of case law, i.e. common law, that talks about what happens at that time. Because it's a common law thing, it's kind of different from state to state. And so you want to make sure that you understand the laws of your state. What does that mean, LeTonya? It means that in general, if you can do it in your state, if it's legal in your state, yes. If it's not legal in your state and you need to get a license, the answer is no. So you got to make sure that you know that. You must know that. Because here's the thing. If the laws of the state, right, says that you cannot do that, typically that means these rights are going to be transferred to that person's estate, which means that that's who you have to go to get permission to utilize that right at that time. So how do you know, right? So determining what state has jurisdiction and all of those things really comes down to where did the person die? Where were they living when they died, right? So let's say, for example, I live in Alabama and I died in California. I am considered to be an Alabama resident. I am, quote, domiciled there. And so because of that, Alabama law is going to govern what would happen to my image after the fact. Now, some states, they have sort of like this broad protection if the person died there. What am I saying? I'm saying there's a lot of factors and variables involved. So you really need to think about this when you're doing these large scale campaigns utilizing someone's image. What should you do? I think you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You actually should obtain the appropriate license, right? You want to make sure that you go through, if you know that you want to have some type of commercial gain, then guess what? You need to reach out to whoever is either the person, of course, if they're alive, you want to reach out to that particular person, their company, whatever process that they require you to go through. If they're deceased, right, you want to reach out to his or her estate, whoever is the executor or personal representative of that estate, And you want to make sure that you reach out to them and request a license, and be forthcoming about how you're going to do the image, how you're going to utilize the image, what are you going to do with it, so that they are making a well-informed decision. Now, you have to be prepared for the alternative, which is, what if they say no? Okay, if they don't give you permission, if they say, no, I'm not letting you use so-and-so's image for this particular project, right? Then some people, they still choose to proceed, because no is typically no, right? What I would say is, if you get a no initially, there's nothing wrong with, especially if they don't give you any information, there's nothing wrong with going back and saying, what would be the circumstances under which I could use this? Or what are the things that I put in my proposal, for example, that made you say no? What was it that you didn't like? What was it that you think is not a good and proper use of this particular person's image? Use it as a learning opportunity. Take the time to find out, what can you do better? And then do what? Do that. If it fits for what your needs are, do that and send it back, right? Because they've already told you what it is that they need. However, there is a flip side to that, where some people will still go ahead and do it even when they have an official no. You are really opening yourself up to all types of litigation when it comes to that, because they told you no, you did it anyway. And you have to think about, this is an income stream for them. They get paid by people utilizing this celebrity's image or their own, right? If the person is still alive. So you really have to think about and ask yourself, as a business owner, would you want someone to be able to leverage and utilize an income source for you, and you're not getting any percentage of that? I'm sure all of you are going to say no, right? And so you have to think about the broader implications. But even with that, there are even other implications, because if there is a suit for right of publicity, typically there's going to be some type of trademark or copyright infringement. Sometimes it can be some type of defamation, depending on how you utilized it. It could really get ugly and messy. And at the end of the day, as a small business owner, you're going to have the capital to fight this. So oftentimes, again, I talk a lot about being proactive and being preventative. Oftentimes, this right here is that thing, right, that you need to make sure that you are doing correctly, because you want to be proactive. You don't want to spend every profit or all of the assets of your business fighting a lawsuit when you could have just paid for a license. I recently read, though, this was really interesting, and just one quick thing I wanted to share. I recently read that in China, Bruce Lee's estate, right? Bruce Lee's estate is called Bruce Lee Enterprise. So I read this interesting article that they have filed a $30 million lawsuit in China against a restaurant chain called Kung Fu Catering Management, right? And they're alleging the exact same thing that I talked about. They're alleging the right of publicity, because this particular restaurant chain, they uses his image, right? They use his image. Of course, he's known for Kung Fu. They use his image. What's interesting, and let me say this, the right of publicity is fairly new to China. So, they are just now developing their case law and things of that nature. But this particular company has been doing this, I want to say, for more than about 15 years. Okay. So, they've been doing this, for a while. And the Bruce Lee, I think a few years before he died, his family relocated from California back to Hong Kong. And so let's think about that in what we talked about with regard to the United States, because the United States would say, if this was a United States issue, right, the United States would say, well, where was he, quote, domiciled? Where was he living? Where was his official residence at the time of his death? And if the answer is California, right, then California law would prevail. If it is Hong Kong, which is where he was physically, right, then you have to say what are the laws there. And so that's what's going on right now. And I just thought it was very interesting that there's a Bruce Lee situation. I personally like Bruce Lee movies, so I'm aging myself. But anyway, you have to really remember that a celebrity's image, it's a income producing product. You would not want someone commandeering your product and utilizing it in their own business for their own personal gain, and you get nothing from it. It's like I mentioned before, right? If you want to use or utilize a celebrity's image to help your business, that's whether they're live, whether they've passed on, I would encourage you to reach out to their company and just get a license first. You don't want a $30 million lawsuit, because guess what? You may very well lose. So you don't want to be Kung Fu Catering, right? I don't know if they're going to lose or not. I haven't looked at the merits at all of the case, but I just thought that it was something interesting when I came across that, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Power of Attorney podcast. Please like our Facebook page, Power of Attorney with LeTonya Moore. Leave us a review, right? Give us those stars that you want us to have. Subscribe to our podcast on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Fire TV, and more. Until next time, I am Attorney LeTonya Moore, encouraging you to leverage your power and protect your brand.